Hello and welcome to the 3D Blu-ray Bunker. This is a place for us die-hard fans of 3D where we exclusively look at 3D Blu-rays, not to review the film, but to almost entirely focus on the quality of the 3D on offer, with just a short comment at the end about the film itself. And today we're looking at the most celebrated 3D film of them all. It feels like Avatar has a towering presence over 3D that will possibly never be surpassed. Until it came along, I think the most famous 3D film was probably House of Wax from 1953, and whilst Avatar's decade-long reign as the all-time highest grossing film was eventually ended by a Marvel superhero film that had a 3D release, I think the association that Avatar has with 3D is immeasurably stronger than the one that Avengers Endgame has. 3D had been sort of soldiering on with a few releases bubbling away prior to Avatar, but it was James Cameron's film that really exploded the popularity of 3D by a gigantic factor, doing it on a budget way beyond anything previously seen, and with that incredible success that redefined what box office ambitions could be, and it made it feel, for just a little while, like 3D really was the future of cinema. The release of Avatar also happened at a time when the electronics industry was ready to unleash and heavily promote domestic 3D displays, and the then fairly recently launched Blu-ray was capable of carrying 3D, so I think it's fair to say that if Avatar hadn't been the success that it was, we'd currently only have a tiny fraction of the 3D Blu-rays in our collections. If you do a search on pretty much any random list of all-time top 10 or top 5 3D films, the chances are that Avatar will not only be on the list, but it'll probably be at the top of it. And that's pretty incredible, really. However much James Cameron conceived and created the film with 3D at its core, it's impressive how the association of Avatar with 3D is so baked in. There seems to be this collective feeling that in more ways than one, Avatar is 3D. When I saw it at the cinema, the aspect ratio was 2.39 to 1, but here, at Cameron's own request, it's 1.78 to 1, or 16 by 9, so the same shape as a TV, and the reframing here from 2.39 to 1 does mean more image at the top and bottom of the screen, rather than the sides being chopped off, and I fully understand why loads of people will prefer this, as it means no black bars at the top and bottom, although for those of us who project onto a 2.4 to 1 fixed frame screen, it's maybe not quite so satisfying. The correct aspect ratio should obviously always be the main thing, and I've sort of lost track of what that is for Avatar. I don't see how he could compose the film for both 2.39 to 1 and 1.78 to 1, because one or both of those is surely going to be some sort of compromise. In fairness though, I didn't really think this version looked obviously compositionally wrong. As well as tinkering with the shape of his films, Cameron's also had a history of tinkering with running times, and there are two longer versions of Avatar, although annoyingly neither of those are available in 3D. Anyway, as everyone will tell you, Avatar has some incredible 3D. Starting with the good stuff then, I think the most obvious way that the film shines is the world of Pandora with its rich and colourful flora and fauna. I've often mentioned how vegetation can look so good in 3D. It's something I first noticed when I started taking 3D photographs when I was a kid, and I'm going to make a guess here that maybe Cameron did the same thing. Okay, I'm partly saying that to grasp at some sort of reason to compare myself to James Cameron, but I genuinely think that is possible, and I'm certain that it's not a coincidence that he designed Pandora to be filled with plant life, as it looks so good in 3D with multiple layers of foliage all occupying space in a way that you can make total sense of. Look at any of these scenes in 3D and then close one eye and the leaves are just a mess of shapes without much meaning, so shot after shot in the Pandora jungle is full of depth, as well as gentle pop, like moving through this scene here, and the red plant in the lower left comes right out of the screen whilst the rest of the image stretches deep into it. There's this column of vines running alongside the track that they're on, which is superb 3D composition, and it all looks to me pretty clearly designed to look fantastic in 3D. He really took things up a level by giving the plants this luscious luminescence so that the nighttime scenes, which can be a problem for 3D, look every bit as good as, if not better than, the daytime stuff. And the view here is one of my favourites in the film, as it's a combination of these shimmering pearlescent vines, and it's a top-down view filled with natural lines of perspective, and some of those little floaty seedling things, and it's all at an important dramatic point in the film. I honestly don't understand how anyone with functioning binocular vision could look at a shot like this and not respond extremely positively to 3D. It's really stunning stuff. And it's using powerful 3D at important points in the film where Cameron really shows what a master 3D director he is. I think a lot of people mentioned this scene. It's a genuinely beautiful piece of 3D where the seed things float around in negative parallax in a completely captivating way, and again it's at a pivotal point in the story. He's using his best 3D at crucial points. He does it again here, immediately after something significant has just happened between the two main characters, and immediately before something else dramatic happens. And you can barely see it in this 2D still, but the floating particles in this shot make the 3D stand out in another of the film's key moments. 3D can always be really effective at conveying a sense of height, and as I think most of us have a bit of an awkward feeling to some degree when high up, it increases the sense of unease and danger significantly when a film shows height in strong 3D, and there are several of these moments in the film, all of which are really powerful. Going back to the beginning of the film, the use of 3D that I think first hits us in a literally tiny but also magical way is this moment where there are some out-of-focus blobs floating in front of Sam Worthington, and when Cameron pulls focus on them, it's the first gentle but excellent piece of 3D in the film. And what's so clever is that immediately after that he then hits us with this first really stunning view, the vast amount of depth in this shot of everyone waking up from their pods. And as this shot unfolds, he increasingly fills the screen with more people, which just makes the 3D more impressive, and the shot's held for a good long time, so you really start to notice details in the structure of this place that you wouldn't normally notice in 2D. Then there's this amazing view when we get the first taste of mixing graphic overlays with live action, and it's spectacular. Nothing like this had ever been seen before, and the 3D is spot on, it's strong and powerful, and there are several of these types of shots in the film. I think by the time we saw the first one of these, I reckon most people in the cinema were probably thinking that they were witnessing the future of filmmaking, and seeing stuff like this in 2D is just a bit of a flat joke up against the 3D version. I love that the way Cameron has some fun with 3D in the film too. Jake Sully's video logs are in 3D, not just the graphics overlays, but the entire image. And Cameron, being the perfectionist that he is, he lets us see that this is because Jake has a little stereo webcam with its two tiny lenses that you can just about see in the frame here. Brilliant stuff. I also love this bit where we see the back of some photos taped to a fridge door, and then we cut to Jake looking at them, and of course they're in 3D. They're like better versions of those lenticular pictures that have been around for years. Incidentally, I have a little lenticular Avatar picture on my fridge at home. Another moment that's both fun and shows us what a perfectionist Cameron is this first-person view. It's when Jake first wakes up in his avatar's body, and because the Na'vi have an interocular much wider than the human one, which I'm sure Cameron designed them that way as a nod to 3D, so with their big eyes being spaced further apart than ours, Jake's view of these two is slightly hyper stereo, so their faces look much deeper than you'd normally see them. In the same scene, there's another brilliant piece of 3D where the depth in composition brings a massive amount of emphasis to the avatar's legs, which of course is fundamental to Jake's character and backstory. As well as all of this, the film is absolutely packed with excellent compositions, which in any other 3D film would be noteworthy as great 3D stereography, but here they just seem sort of effortless, and when they're ordinary things shot on sets rather than the mesmerising world of Pandora, they maybe aren't the obvious stars of the show, but they're nonetheless superbly done. And no one really ever says, well, what about that incredible shot in Avatar with all those rows of people? But this view is absolutely outstanding. It looks amazing, and Cameron being Cameron, I wouldn't be at all surprised if each and every one of those people had been wrangled to within an inch of their position to make the shot look as good as it does. Pretty much all of the interior set design looks like it was constructed to optimise the 3D, so corridors stretch back deep into the frame. There are often rows upon rows of things like these helicopters, if that's what they're called. There's this great little shot where the circles drilled into the glass door were put there, I'm sure, purely to make the 3D look good. The framing is always in place to make the 3D interesting, foreground, middle ground and background, and the camera moving through things. None of these scenes is filmed in a way that's boring for 3D, but at the same time none of it's gimmicky 3D. Although speaking of gimmicky 3D, whilst the film is full of stuff that's in front of the screen, it's not very often the sort of pointy throwy variety. There are a couple of shots of guns poking out of the screen. I don't think James Cameron's ever made a film that didn't feature guns, and these shots are pretty obligatory in a 3D film. There are also a small number of very quick throw-it-in-your-face shots, like these clips from the grenades, if that's what they are, flying out of the screen, which is in slow motion, always a good thing for 3D. Or you've got spent shells ejecting from the gun here at high speed, or there's this appearance of one of the awesome Ikrans who pokes his head out from behind the leaves and comes right out of the screen in a shot that only lasts a split second. But there are very few of these extremely quick pop-outs, so I'd say that's a good thing. So on the whole, and this sounds a little bit odd bearing in mind this is James Cameron, I'd describe the 3D in the film as being very tastefully done. For the most part, it really is a masterclass in stereoscopic filmmaking. But, and there is a but, and it's not an insignificant one. I really don't think that all of the film's 3D is excellent. First off, there are an annoying number of flat shots in the film, not the long distance ones, which I'll get onto in a moment, but flat shots within otherwise 3D scenes, which to some of us are really about as glaring as a colour film briefly going black and white. I don't know why these shots are in 2D. If there had been something wrong with his camera, I'd have thought a quick dose of post-conversion could have fixed these, and I have read that there are some post-converted shots in the film. I don't know, maybe these were a disc authoring problem. Speaking of which, this early close-up of Jake's eye is inverted. The left and right view are the wrong way around, which is a mistake that shouldn't have crept in, really. Or, funnily enough, we get the same view again here, much later in the film, this time the correct way around. And when we get this shot, Jake's voiceover says, "Everything is backwards now," which kind of amused me a bit. This shot shows Jake's transfer into the Avatar, and it's a sort of psychedelic rush, a quickly moving trip through a tunnel of light. And I think this ought to have been a shoo-in for great 3D, but it just doesn't work. Maybe it's because it jumps around so much rather than being a fluid movement, but the 3D here definitely looks a little bit off to me, which is a shame. There's also this shot, which is fine, and probably not many people were disappointed by it, but for me, if he's going to show Sigourney Weaver looking into a nifty little stereo microscope, then he should let us see what she's looking at. It could have been a great micro 3D moment. Of course, I suppose whatever she was looking at had nothing to do with the story, so it wasn't necessary to see it, and at least it wasn't some Na'vi midichlorians or anything like that, so that's a blessing. But even so, I thought it was a tiny letdown. So really, all of those negatives are very minor, and they're easy to overlook, but where I find the film's 3D to be genuinely lackluster is virtually all of the exterior long shots. Now, as ever, I have to keep in mind that Cameron is a world-class 3D expert, and the shots he got were exactly what he wanted. And like I said, the 3D in this film is extremely tasteful, and it's accurate, so it generally sticks with the human view, or the Na'vi view. So long shots like this just wouldn't be seen in 3D in normal vision. But for me, one of the beauties of 3D photography in films is that they allow for 3D views that can't be seen in reality. So whilst they wouldn't have been natural, and may have even introduced an element of miniaturization effect, I just wish that for all of these views, which are as good as flat, and there are a huge number of them throughout the film, I wish he'd pushed it a little bit more to introduce some stereoscopic depth to them. For example, a similar spaceship shot to this worked perfectly well in strong 3D in Ridley Scott's The Martian, which is a non-gimmicky 3D film, and I really don't think there would have been anything wrong with bringing the moon of Pandora here into 3D space out in front of the gas giant Polyphemus, which is what I think the planet's called. Obviously, this isn't accidentally weak 3D, it's exactly the way Cameron wanted it to look, and I've got nothing but respect for him. I'm really just saying that I'd prefer it to be ramped up a bit. Whilst the spectacular design of the Pandora landscape is in many ways sufficiently jaw-dropping in 2D, and it really is exceptionally beautiful, for me it does take away a bit from the notion that the film was entirely conceived as a 3D experience, because from a stereoscopic point of view, these shots are all really close to useless. They're phenomenal eye candy, but they're most definitely not good 3D. The most disappointing shot of the film in this regard, I think, is this one. It's one of my favourite moments in the film. It's a rousing shot of one of the other tribes riding their ikrans to go to the assistance of the Na'vi. It's a gorgeous shot with beautiful natural lighting on the water, and the effects are obviously amazing, but it's completely two-dimensional. So, to the film itself, like I've said, I don't make any attempt to review films, that's not what this channel is about, and I'm rubbish at doing it anyway, but suffice to say, I love the film. Perhaps it would have felt a bit more epic maybe if it had spanned a larger area across Pandora, but obviously it looks stunning. There are several really enjoyable performances. Stephen Lang's warmongering villain of the piece is great. Giovanni Ribisi, he's often very funny as the slimeball boss of the corporation. I think Zoe Saldana brings a real feeling of cultured alien dignity to her role, and even Sam Worthington's fine as the lead. And it's good to see Sigourney Weaver in there too. And I think the story's perfectly strong and important even. I know it's had some complaints about it just being a simplistic science fiction retelling of the story of the Native Americans, or even just a Dances with Wolves in Space knockoff, or whatever. But it's primarily a piece of entertainment, not an attempt to bring Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee to the screen. And Jake Sully says at one point, when people are sitting on shit you want, you make them your enemy, and then you justify taking it. And I can't help feeling that this is less a telling of history, but more a warning of what we're going to increasingly see as this century unfolds. So, is it the best 3D film ever made? There are a few others that could make that claim, maybe Gravity, Hugo, or even House of Wax, I guess, for some. But surely there's no question that this is right up there, and whatever your take on the film is, as a 3D fan, I think Avatar is owed a debt of gratitude that can never properly be paid, however many versions you end up buying. Obviously then, this is a totally essential film for your 3D Blu-ray collection, and if you're listening to this, I'd be amazed if you don't already own a copy. The question with this one used to be not, is it worth buying the Blu-ray to watch on your 3D TV, but is it worth buying a 3D TV so that you can watch the film? And I'd have always said yes it is, the biggest one possible. But now, 10 years later, the 3D TV production lines are all gathering dust, and the number of 3D cinema releases is dwindling away. Not even all of those are making it onto Blu-ray. But this wasn't about what went wrong for 3D, it was about what went right. And I think Avatar is pretty much as incredible a 3D experience today as it was in 2009. And I'm definitely one of those who can hardly wait to see what James Cameron does with Avatar 2. So I hope you found this in some way useful, and if so, I hope you'll join me again soon for another 3D Blu-ray review. Until then, thanks for looking on this one. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.